made a critical error when they left you for dead. A miscalculation so profound it will echo through the corridors of time until it eventually circles back to find them, perhaps when they least expect it. Listen closely to what I'm about to tell you, because this isn't just about survival. This is about something far more profound. The strategic alchemy that occurs when abandonment transforms into advantage. When being discarded becomes your deadliest weapon. This is tactical resurrection. When they walk away from your seemingly broken form, something extraordinary happens in that shadowland between destruction and rebirth. A metamorphosis so complete, so devastating in its implications, that had they possessed even a fraction of foresight, they would have remained to witness your final breath, rather than assume its inevitability. But they didn't stay, did they? Their arrogance blinded them to an ancient truth known to warriors throughout history. To truly destroy something, you must remain until the destruction is absolute. Anything less creates not an ending, but a crucible. A transformative vessel where what emerges bears only the faintest resemblance to what entered. In leaving you for dead, they gifted you with 3 elements no strategist can purchase at any price. First, the cloak of invisibility. When enemies believe you've been eliminated, you vanish from their tactical awareness. You become a ghost, present yet unseen, active yet undetected, gathering strength while generating no alarm. Second, the weapon of underestimation. When adversaries classify you as defeated, they recalibrate their defenses downward. They relax their vigilance. They redirect their resources toward new threats, leaving behind vulnerabilities that would never exist had they correctly assessed your status. Third, and perhaps most valuable, the infinity of unbound expectation. When the world pronounces your demise, it simultaneously removes every limitation on what you might become in your resurrection. The script has been concluded. The role has been terminated. You now exist outside the narrative they crafted for you. And in that uncharted territory lies power beyond calculation. Consider the strategic position you now occupy. While they celebrate victory, you analyze the precise mechanisms of their attack. While they divide your supposed remains, you study the exact composition of their alliance. While they construct elaborate justifications for their actions, you dispassionately identify the psychological weaknesses revealed in their need for such justification. This isn't just intelligence gathering. This is hyper-focused, pressure-forged insight impossible to acquire any other way. The tactically resurrected don't just know their enemies. They understand them with a clarity that borders on omniscience. They perceive not just behaviors, but patterns. Not just weaknesses, but systemic vulnerabilities. Not just participants, but entire networks of alliance and obligation. Conventional warriors study their opponents. The tactically resurrected have absorbed them. Ordinary strategists anticipate their enemies' moves. The resurrected have mapped their enemies' minds. This profound comprehension emerges directly from the unique vantage point of the supposedly vanquished. When enemies believe they've won, they expose aspects of themselves invisible under any other circumstance. They reveal their true priorities and how they distribute what they think you've left behind. They demonstrate their actual hierarchies and who claims credit for your fall. They display their authentic character and how they speak of your defeat. All while you watch, undetected, from the shadows they believe contain only your memory. But this extraordinary position of advantage demands something few possess: the discipline to remain dead in their perception until the perfect moment of revelation. This is where most fail. The temptation to announce your survival prematurely proves overwhelming for ordinary souls. The hunger for immediate vindication, for swift retribution, for rapid reassertion of existence. These impulses destroy the very advantage your supposed demise created. The tactically resurrected understand a counterintuitive truth. Your greatest power lies in continuing to be perceived as powerless. Your most effective position comes from being regarded as positionless. Your deadliest capability derives from being considered completely incapable. This disciplined invisibility requires suppressing the most primal human instinct, the desperate need to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be recognized. This suppression represents not just strategic mastery, but complete conquest of the ego itself. And that's precisely why so few achieve true tactical resurrection. They cannot bear the weight of their own absence from the world's awareness. They cannot tolerate the vacuum of external validation. They cannot sustain the disciplined silence that strategic invisibility demands. But you are different. Your enemy's greatest miscalculation wasn't in their attack. It wasn't even in leaving before confirming your demise. Their most catastrophic error was in failing to recognize what kind of entity they were dealing with from the beginning. They thought you were ordinary. They classified you among the countless masses who require constant affirmation, who hunger for perpetual recognition, who exist primarily in relation to how others perceive them. They never understood that beneath your conventional exterior existed something ancient, something patient, something capable of transforming the void of abandonment into a forge of recreation. While conventional beings fear the darkness of invisibility, you recognized it as the birthplace of stars. While ordinary minds dread the silence of obscurity, you heard within it the whispers of perfect strategy. While common souls panic in the isolation of being forgotten, you transformed it into the ultimate incubator of reinvention. This alchemical conversion, from abandonment to advantage, from destruction to creation, from ending to origin, this is the essence of tactical resurrection. But understand, what emerges from this chrysalis is not what entered it. The tactically resurrected aren't simply restored versions of their former selves. They are strategic entities of an entirely different order. They perceive differently, processing information through filters unavailable to their previous incarnations. They calculate differently, operating with mathematical precision where emotion once clouded judgment. They execute differently, moving with the cold efficiency of systems rather than the erratic improvisation of individuals. In leaving you for dead, your enemies didn't just fail to end you. They catalyzed the creation of something they lacked the sensory apparatus to fully comprehend. You became an extinction-level event wearing a familiar face. The most dangerous predator isn't the one that announces itself with roars and visible weapons. It's the one that approaches in the guise of the already conquered, the already defeated, the already eliminated. The tactical advantage of being underestimated cannot be overstated. When enemies believe they've taken your measure and found you wanting, they create blind spots in their awareness precisely where you actually exist. When they categorize you as a vanquished former threat, they systematically exclude you from their ongoing threat assessment. When they file you under concluded business, they ensure you'll never appear in their analysis of unfinished concerns. This invisibility to their strategic awareness creates freedom of movement impossible to achieve any other way. Conventional operators must account for enemy surveillance. The tactically resurrected move through terrains considered empty. Ordinary adversaries must penetrate established defenses. The resurrected walk through gaps that exist because their presence isn't calculated. Traditional opponents face enemies at their most vigilant. The resurrected encounter them at their most vulnerable. But this extraordinary advantage comes with an extraordinary price. The sacrifice of who you once were. The metamorphosis required for true tactical resurrection demands complete abandonment of previous identity, previous limitations, previous patterns, even previous strengths, if those strengths were known to the enemies who believed they destroyed you. You cannot retain the recognizable elements of your former self while simultaneously benefiting from being perceived as eliminated. You cannot leverage the advantages of strategic death while clinging to identifiable aspects of your previous existence. The tactically resurrected understand this transaction with perfect clarity. They recognize the extraordinary value of what they're gaining in exchange for what they're surrendering. They calculate the strategic advantage of complete reinvention against the hollow comfort of familiar identity. And having made this calculation, they execute the transformation with unflinching commitment. This willingness to entirely release who they were in service to who they're becoming, this is what separates the truly resurrected from those merely playing at strategic revival. This is what distinguishes authentic tactical resurrection from its many shallow imitations. The depth of this commitment explains why tactical resurrection remains so rare, even among those handed the perfect circumstances for its implementation. Most cannot bear the complete dissolution of self required. Most cannot tolerate the absolute surrender of previous identity demanded. Most cannot sustain the comprehensive reinvention necessary. But for those who recognize the strategic value worth any price, the advantages transcend ordinary calculation. Consider the position of your enemies, who believe they've successfully eliminated you from their strategic equation. They've recalibrated their entire system based on your absence. They've reallocated resources previously dedicated to containing you. They've restructured vulnerabilities previously protected from you. They've revised protocols previously designed with you in mind. In short, they've systematically dismantled their specific defenses against exactly what you've become. This creates not just an advantage, but an asymmetry so profound it nearly guarantees successful infiltration. When systems are specifically redesigned to exclude vigilance against a particular threat, they inadvertently optimize their vulnerability to that exact danger. In their perceived victory, your enemies haven't just lowered their guard. They've reconstructed their entire defensive architecture to create perfect entry points for precisely what they believe they've eliminated. And yet, this extraordinary strategic position still requires something beyond ordinary patience, the discipline to await the perfect moment for revelation. Because tactical resurrection finds its ultimate expression not just in survival, not just in recovery, not even in invisible reconstitution of power, but in the precisely calibrated disclosure of your continued existence. This revelation, when executed with strategic perfection, doesn't just shock, it doesn't just surprise. It systematically collapses the entire reality structure your enemies have built upon the foundational assumption of your elimination. When a strategically critical element suddenly reappears in a system specifically redesigned around its absence, the system doesn't simply malfunction. It undergoes catastrophic cascade failure as every calculation, every allocation, every protocol simultaneously invalidates. This isn't merely an attack. It's a reality collapse engineered at the precise moment of maximum vulnerability. The tactically resurrected understand that this moment of revelation carries the concentrated power of their entire invisible resurrection. They recognize it as the strategic culmination of every second spent in disciplined concealment. They approach it not with the emotional hunger of revenge, but with the mathematical precision of optimal deployment. Because the perfectly executed tactical resurrection doesn't seek mere victory. It creates conditions where victory becomes a systemic inevitability. The only possible outcome of equations set in motion long before the visible conflict even begins. So as you move through your own resurrection, unseen and uncalculated by those who believed they'd written your final chapter, remember what makes this journey unlike any other transformation. You're not just rebuilding, you're not just recovering, you're not just returning. You're operating within the single most advantageous position any strategist can occupy, moving with complete freedom throughout territories your adversaries have designated as permanently cleared of your presence. You're navigating with perfect intelligence through systems specifically recalibrated to create blind spots exactly where you exist. You're preparing your revelation for the precise moment when it will trigger not just damage, but comprehensive collapse of everything built upon the assumption of your absence. This is the essence of tactical resurrection, the strategic alchemy that transforms the ultimate abandonment into the ultimate advantage. They left you for dead. It will prove to be the last mistake they ever make. Because in that abandonment, they didn't just fail to destroy you. They created something they lacked the capacity to defeat. Something they lacked the awareness to detect. Something they lacked the framework to even comprehend. In their arrogance, they didn't just walk away from your present. They forfeited their future. And when the moment of revelation finally arrives, when your tactical resurrection completes its arc from invisible recovery to systemic reality collapse, they won't just understand their error. They'll recognize it as the single point of catastrophic miscalculation from which everything that follows becomes inevitable. The moment they believed was your ending, it was merely your most powerful beginning. The circumstances they thought would destroy you, they were precisely what you needed to become unstoppable. The abandonment they assumed would conclude your story, it simply transferred authorship from their hands to yours. Tactical resurrection isn't just survival against the odds. It's the strategic transfiguration of those very odds into your most devastating advantage. They left you for dead. You'll show them exactly what that makes you.